We know that ancient Egyptians used papyrus to create their written documents. Some scrolls were constructed with a long, continuous piece of papyrus, while others were made up of separate sheets glued together at the edges. Some scrolls were simply rolled up, and others had wooden rollers on each end. But as sophisticated as the scrolls were, there was a drawback to their design, in that they allowed only for sequential usage. In other words, the reader must read the text in the order it was written. But a revolutionary change was taking place during the early Roman Empire. The Romans highly regarded the importance of knowledge. Over time, the Romans had developed a flourishing book industry. Roman handwriting continued to evolve, adding lowercase letters and punctuations to their writing. As a result, they found scrolls too cumbersome for lengthy works, and so created a new way to put together handwritten pages, the codex. A codex is a covered and bound collection of handwritten pages, essentially a book. The term codex is Latin for block of wood. The codex had many advantages over the scroll, such as its compactness, sturdiness, and ease of reference. For example, a codex is random access, which means one can go to any point in the book to find information. In addition, the codex could be opened flat at any page and was considered more portable than the scroll, whereas the scroll is sequential access, meaning one must go through the scroll to find a certain passage. The codex was also easier to organize in libraries because the title could be written on the spine. It is believed that the spread of the codex is associated with the rise of Christianity, which adopted the format for the Bible early on. In fact, the first book ever printed by a printing press was the Bible. As the codex, or book, became more popular, papyrus was slowly replaced with parchment, a substrate made from animal skins such as sheep, goats, and cows. Hair and fat were removed, and the skin was smoothed out. The hide was then soaked in water, and calcium, flour, and salt were added. Then the skin was stretched out, flattened, and dried. Finer qualities of parchment called vellum were made from the skins of young calves. The use of the more durable parchment over the fragile papyrus allowed many of these ancient books to still exist. The process by which books are created has improved over the many centuries that books have been around. But the format itself, a set of bound pages within a durable cover, has changed very little. In fact, even digital books, used with readers like the Kindle and the iPad, use an interface that replicates the experience of reading a book, rather than a scroll. Books became more refined as papermaking and bookbinding methods became more sophisticated. However, the decline of the Roman Empire and its fall to the Huns around 450 resulted in fewer books being created, and led to the period in Europe of cultural and economic deterioration known as the Dark Ages. The Dark Ages denotes the time period between the fall of the Roman Empire and the Renaissance. During this time, schools were virtually non-existent, few people could read, and no significant works of science, art, literature, or music had been created. Books were only available to the wealthy who could afford them, and to the church, who continued to use the codex format for their Bibles and scriptures. In fact, monastic monks, who became the scribes that created most of these books by hand, took the creation of these books to such an art form, the books themselves became works of art. Not only did they write all of the text by hand, but also adorned each page with elaborate illustrations and ornamentation. The books became known as illuminated manuscripts. The term illumination refers to the borders, illustrations, and ornamentation added to each page of text. This ornamentation included initials of chapters or paragraphs, paintings in margins, borders, and around text. It took months, sometimes years, for monks to complete a single volume in the skins of several hundred animals. Natural quill pens, made from plucking feathers from geese, crows, and turkeys, were used for the highly intricate and detailed work. Because the work was so laborious, it was usually reserved for religious texts, most of which were used during Christian masses. Some illuminated manuscripts still exist today because of the materials used and the craftsmanship employed to create them. However, a great number of these works of art have vanished due to various armies that have invaded Europe and destroyed churches, where many of these illuminated manuscripts were kept. Around 1450, the practice of creating illuminated manuscripts by hand began to decline. It was replaced by an invention that changed the world: the printing press.